Hi guys, and welcome back to day 7 of Inktober. Today I wanted to design one that had an oval shape to it so that it would mirror some of the things that are happening in the first piece that I did. So that is something that I'm being conscious of going forward. With each time I design something, I like to look at all my other pieces, which I actually have all hanging up on this little rack behind me. And I look at it and I see what design elements are happening in them so that I can repeat some of them, because again, I want these all to look very cohesive for the book that they're going to be in. And it's also really fun to be able to look at a group of pieces and see these ties that connect them with each other. So today it was a pretty simple one where I just wanted to frame the piece within an oval, and I've actually been really enjoying framing things so far in Inktober because this is a technique that I never use in my normal work outside of it, and I like looking at ways to do that. It's definitely something that I'll continue afterwards, like the one where I did the hand with the snake. I did just a square border, but I had the hand breaking the border. And I've been looking at a lot of other artists doing things with framing devices that create a different shape within the page, and I'm really enjoying a lot of them, and I've been thinking about them, and in most of the pieces that I've done so far, I've considered options for them for things that are a little bit more creative as far as how they're contained within the page. So moving forward, there's definitely going to be more of that, and I'm going to experiment more with it. But today I am mimicking what happened in the first piece so that I can have at least 2 so far that have an oval shape in them. So when I was sketching this one out, I knew that I wanted her dress to be a very straight, sharp black. I was really excited to be able to start incorporating things that are a little bit more graphic like that. And I love elements that are really sharp. And I'm really happy that I ended up doing it with this. I think it really helped push the values better overall. So far, my values for Inktober's have been pretty high key and low contrast. So what that means basically is that they're all relatively light values and they don't vary very much as far as the darkest and the highest keys. So this one, I think that overall the final product of how the values look, it's a lot more striking than my other ones so far. Because I started with a very dark value for her dress, it helped me push some of the other areas so that they would be as dark as they need to be in contrast, as well as I was able to make sure that the lights were really sharp and popping out. So overall, I think that this one was maybe one of my more successful ones as far as making sure that the values are what I wanted them to be. So the thing with the ink that I'm using this year, and actually I was using a different ink last year, I had the same thing happen, but when I create ink washes, they go on much darker than they end up drying down to, which is fine. I have a little piece of paper on the side that I do little swatches of, and I let it dry completely before I put it onto the final paper, so I know what it's actually going to end up. But because there's a little bit of a discrepancy between the two, I think that it's kind of accidentally influencing the way that I end up doing my values. So I think I need to be a little bit more aggressive with the values and making sure that they're dark enough as I'm working on it, rather than putting it down and feeling like it's going to be dark enough and then it drying lighter and forgetting or not really realizing that it needs to be pushed more. And I think that'll definitely help in the future when I do want pieces that have a lot more high contrast. Since I've had to make so many new illustrations so quickly, I've begun realizing how my thought process is when it comes to thinking of new ideas. And I definitely have a problem where I'll think of a basic concept and then immediately I'll write it off because it sounds uninteresting. But I've realized that the way for me to find interest in these pieces is to add new interesting details to it, to add a story to it. So for this one, it just started off with a concept of someone just standing in drapes, opening them up. And I thought of it and I was like, okay, that sounds kind of interesting. And I found some great references of it. This one is actually pretty inspired by, there's a famous photo of Grace Kelly. So if you've seen it, you probably would recognize this and the parallels between the two. But when I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, I need to make a piece now. Is this actually the idea I want? It felt really bland and not interesting, and I have done that so many times throughout Inktober already, where I'll think of an idea that could absolutely work with a little bit of work, but I'll pass it up and move on to the next one, then I'll pass that one up, and it we'll get to a point where I'm feeling really stressed because I feel like I can't come up with an idea when really I just came up with a bunch of them and I just wrote them all off because I hadn't quite finished how it's going to be interesting to me. So I am trying to be more aware of how a basic concept can become something that I am really interested in, and finding the details that I need to add to it to make that happen. And I think that that's going to really take some of the pressure off of Inktober for me, where I'll be able to take an idea and turn it into something that I really love without all this extra hassle in the road to getting to that final result. So for her, I ultimately decided that I wanted her dress to be melty and have this really weird drippy edge to it. And then I was looking up more dress references, and I love these like strappy things that have all these black straps around the chest. And that's ultimately what combined. And as I was sketching it, because I forced myself to continue with the idea and continue sketching, I added this crystal that was bound and tied in her dress. And then ultimately, when I'm actually executing this, I end up putting a skull on her face, which is something that I do probably too often, but I always love it. And ultimately, it was just all those details together that turned this piece into something that I really liked and I was enjoying, and I enjoyed painting it. So it was not that much extra time and thought that went into turning something that I felt was relatively uninteresting and uninspired into something that, at least for me, was interesting. And I'm trying to remind myself of that as I get ideas for each new day and each new piece. I need to think it a little bit harder. Not meaning that I should absolutely settle on the first idea, because that is something that is the way that it has been for a long time, and then I've gotten that drilled out of my head because I need to be able to expand on ideas and make them better. But ultimately, I don't need to throw away perfectly fine ideas because in that instant I feel unsettled by it. So I guess ultimately maybe my lesson from today is perseverance in ideas. I think that it will absolutely help me in the future. I do think there's a lot of things that I'm breezing past, concepts and ideas, elements I can include in my pieces that would really bring it up to the next level. But I am in such a rush sometimes with my ideas, not that it's necessary, but that I'm forcing myself to be in a rush, that I'm passing by things that could have really improved my enjoyment of a piece and my satisfaction in the final result, which is something that I'm really trying to chase lately, is figuring out what I need to do to be more satisfied with my pieces, things that I can do to make them more unique or more just elements that I can learn from and things that I can get a little bit more experience in painting it so it's not so repetitive. But ultimately, I think that's really all within me. I just need to start giving myself a little breath and then persevering with the idea, with the concept that I do have working. And then I'm finally just doing some little touch-ups with my little jelly roll pen. And I love this thing. I really do love the details that I can help make things pop out. And it's actually really forgiving because I'm able to use ink washes on top of it to tone them down, or I can completely ink over them with my micron. So I found that they are really easy to use as far as forgivability. I also have used them to basically erase some mistakes in my micron pen. So in the line art phase at the very beginning, I can go in and fix them and then let it dry, and then I'll do another layer to make it more opaque, and ultimately I can put these ink washes on top of it and you wouldn't even notice that it's there at all. So it's this really great tool that has been pretty surprising how much I've enjoyed it and loved it. And finally, I just gave the background behind the oval a more dark mid-tone value. That really just helps bring everything back in, so it's not one dark patch with a really dark dress and then fading and washing out into all this lightness. So that just helps bring it all back into one focal point. And that is it for today's Inktober. I do have the original of this available, so if you'd like to, there's a link in the description as well as in the end card. It'll take you to my art shop where she's listed, and I have a lot of other art goodies there. And I do post daily Inktober videos, so stay tuned for tomorrow for another one. And let me know in the comments how you guys are doing with Inktober so far. This is officially 1 week in, 7 pieces, so I'd love to hear what you guys are doing and how you're coming along with your projects. But yes, that is it for today, so I'll see you guys tomorrow for my next one.